Ms. Manian, I'll give you the Thank you. Thank you, Shazna. Good morning. Can you hear me? I've changed my mic. I just want to make sure that you can hear me in the back rows. Great. Thank you very much for having me at Warwick University. It took me many years to realize the second W was silent. I gave myself away as a dumb Mumbaiker turned Chennaiite, whatever. I was delighted to see your campus yesterday, and your colleagues from the first year took good care of me, taking me to Stratford-on-Avon. So you're very strategically located to see some beautiful things in this campus and nearby. But you know, I found a very interesting thought in my little booklet that was placed in my room in Radcliffe. It said that there is a person whose history comes back to Coventry, the area where you all are located, which is very connected to the history from the city I come from. I come from Chennai, like Shailaja, and it's, we have a doubting Tom and you have a peeping Tom. Did you know that? So doubting Thomas, one of the apostles who doubted that Jesus could resurrect himself, is called Doubting Thomas, is said to be buried in Chennai. And one of the three basilicas in the world that have been built above an apostle exists there in St. Thomas Basilica in Chennai. And when I came here, I found out yesterday that there was a tailor who peeped when Lady Godiva was riding naked in Coventry. And that's why the term, and he was called Tom, and that's why the term peeping Tom came to be. So if you look for similarities, I find that you will always find similarities between people in the world. And so the beauty of it is, since we're sitting right here in England, I thought I would run a 1-minute video from the famous Kumar's at 42 that points to similarities between India and England, and not just England, but the royal family. So anyone in this room who's not Indian? I mean, no Indian origin at all. And we have about 9 or 8 people, but even you will enjoy this similarity.
Treatment of the colour, great. The Queen looks nice, doesn't she?
Nice? Of course nice. Because she's Indian.
The Queen?
All of them, the whole royal family Indian.
What are you talking about?
Oh, think about it, yeah? Huh? Descended from Queen Victoria, Empress of India, so Indian.
Rubbish.
Not rubbish, look at them. Huh? They all live in the same family house together, Indian. All work in the family business, Indian. All have arranged marriages, Indian. They all have sons. Daughters no good, Indian. Children live with their parents until they are married, Indian. What more do you want? You want them to put on turbans and charm snakes out of baskets?
Harry, Wills, Fergie.
They're all Indian. All except Prince Charles. He's African. If he was Indian, he'd have smaller ears.
Poor Prince Charles and his ears, he gets teased quite a bit. But there is similarity, and I was going to focus on my talk today on 2 aspects of this similarity. And like you, I'm having trouble with a clicker.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, so apologies. I'm going to try and share 2 pieces in the agenda of my talk. The first one, I'll tell you my story, simply because I think it's interesting when you see an ordinary person go and do something that is a little bit different, and you think, well, if she could do it, anybody could do it. So please listen to my story, maybe for the first 5 or 6 minutes. And then the balance 25 minutes, let's discover together what are some things that we can do to strengthen our Indian roots and fly on global wings. All of the stories I share will be from Fortune 100, sometimes Fortune 500 companies that have done business with India. And so, over 20 years, working with about 76 nationalities that came into India, we collected a repository of qualitative, zero quantitative analysis, I'm afraid, qualitative experiential learnings of a repeated pattern that emerged about how India, with its skills of behavior added to business, could do brilliantly in the world. And so, one of the first things in my story is that I was raised in Mumbai. I went and did a diploma at the Sorbonne in Paris just to get a foreign degree. And then came back, married someone and moved to Chennai, which has become home to me since. But at about the age of 33, 32, I met Joanne Brady Husky, who was a wonderful accidental meeting in my life, the wife of a US diplomat, who turned me into an accidental entrepreneur. Because she gave me the opportunity to think about, hey, there's a need for a one-stop shop in India when all this foreign direct investment is just beginning to come, so that we can answer all their questions and concerns on intercultural behavior, on the business aspects of moving to India, working with Indians, and relocating. And that's how I started. And I don't know how, but my wonderful journey took me on an incredible meeting of minds that have inspired me always. One of them was Dr. Ulrich Betz. Do you know which car he heads? His factory is 5-10 minutes from your campus. Which one? The James Bond car, hint, hint. Aston Martin. So he was the CEO of Aston Martin, and now he's the I think he's the vice chair. And he sits right here in Gaydon. And opportunities to work on understanding India, how shall I do business with India in a way that will work with bureaucracy and with government and with business, is something that we've been able to share with people like him. We were also able to, somehow in my journey, be able to work with the czars of IT and say, is there something in this space where we're trying to send out cultural magazines to promote better understanding of India, which would make sense for the business world as well to share in their own corporations. So I've left you a few copies of Culturama, a 20-year-old magazine that I have run absolutely free with the help of my team to promote understanding of Indian business and behavior, mostly of Indian culture. And finally, somehow my path took me from Matunga to Mylapore to Harvard Square. I have no idea how the journey happened, but it certainly is about doing something that you love to do and working really hard at it. Those are the only two things that I think at the end of the day, every one of you will have to do when you choose your career paths, or you continue the career that you're currently in, or that you make a change in the career that you take on. And so that's my story, and there are 3 quick learnings that I thought I'd share with you on this journey. The first is appreciate with sincerity. When you work in a global scenario, and everyone here in Warwick, you have a great launch pad to be global. Is there a way by which you could appreciate with sincerity anyone that you see as a mentor, a role model, or even just a different person from whom you can learn something? I had the chance to do this with Vishwanath Anand, who is a Chennaiite and a world chess champion, as we know, to have an opportunity to say something about you is very down to earth, what is it that you do and how can we work together for the NGO sector. And then Anand and I were able to get together and he helped us play simultaneous matches. You know, when you play simuls with Anand, you usually have to say to everybody, we want to play with Vishwanath Anand, please pay 25,000 rupees for this charity and buy a table. And there's a queue of people, CEOs who are ready to do that. In the faint hope that they might win. But it doesn't happen. Anand says to me, Ranjini, when you need that game ended, give me 1 minute's notice, okay? And then you just say to Anand, okay, time up, like you tell me for a speaker, he'll go and everybody will be checkmate. So that's how I had an opportunity to work with him in some of the sectors that I wanted to expand into by sincerely appreciating what he did and what he stood for. The second story, or the second learning I've had is, we just have to be authentic. We have to do what we do and believe in what we do and be a true version of ourselves. We don't have to be somebody else, right? So for example, I go to speak anywhere in any forum. I'm always pretty much the only one in a sari. Is there anyone here in a sari? Yeah, usually there isn't. But that's who I am. That's what I'm comfortable with. When I started my business at Global Adjustments, I made a very smart suit. I want you to know that I thought I was very well dressed. But I had chosen a cheap tailor and cheap fabric, and I looked a sight. And not only that, I looked and felt really uncomfortable in Western clothes. So you quickly have to realize that this is not what makes it tick. End of the day, I'm passionate about Indian culture, promoting understanding, so can I just be myself and go around the world talking about the importance of what we do? And you know what? People accept you. Even this guy accepted me. Now him? Right. So Jeff is known to be a very short attention span guy. So they brought him to the India Immersion Center, the center that I run in Chennai, in Raja Annamalaipuram. And they wouldn't tell me Jeff Bezos was coming that day. They said, VIP from Amazon, can't tell you, it's a private trip. Nobody knows, the press doesn't know, the government doesn't know. And someone from Amazon is coming, please train him in Indian business culture. And the amount of 6 security guards that were going around my little building to check it, I knew it had to be Jeff. So when he came in and we had an opportunity to work with him, I run a workshop for these CEOs of big companies. We call it This India Business. And we tell you how to do business in India from the sector that you're interested in. So he was clearly interested in the retail business, right? And he was like, what is retail behavior like in India? And so I had to say to Jeff, I can't sit inside this room with air conditioned temperature, with 6 bodyguards behind you telling you how retail behavior works. Can you come with me to in the car? We'll go to Nalli, the sari shop, and you watch retail behavior. And so he got rid of his bodyguards, got in the car, and we went to Nalli. And that's when we saw one woman who was a bride trying to buy a sari. And she has 5 people around her, right? And this aunt is saying, but why do you want to buy that color? You already have that color. And this uncle is saying, but my cousin is running the store opposite. It's 500 rupees cheaper. Let's go and look there. And then finally the other person pipes up and says, you really should take this color, you know. Radhika wears it in TV serials and it's very popular. So I said to Jeff, celebrity endorsement, collective decision making, money conscious, that's retail behavior. And so he was going to launch Kindle. They claimed that it helped. And then he wore a little dhoti like that. And happy to be one of us. So the world is ready to come meet us halfway. That's the beauty of where we stand today. And so being authentic is helpful. And the last is asking for advice. So I don't know if how many of you know this business coach. He's American too. Have you read this book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There? It's a business book, one of America's top business books, and it's done by Marshall Goldsmith. I highly recommend this book because it talks about 20 behaviors from the chamber of horror. And he says, please give up these 20 behaviors if you want to become a really good leader. And so I admired Marshall. I wanted to ask him for advice. I'm running a small entrepreneurial company. How can I take what I have and try to expand the influence that it might have? Can't afford Marshall. He charges $25,000 to even open his mouth. So, I just met him at a conference and I said, I need some advice. Can you give me some free advice? So, when you want money, the tip is ask for advice. Because you will get the money and the advice. So he came down to India and trained my whole team on what he calls Feed Forward, a very good tool. You should please look up Marshall Goldsmith's Feed Forward, brilliant behavioral tool to become brilliant CEOs or managers at high levels. So those 3 things have helped me in my life, and I think they would help anyone that took on a role to be a global citizen. And that is relate when you don't even have any business with them, and then the business just flows. Then I'll talk to you a little bit about the cultural quotient. You all have IQs that are very high, that's why you are in Warwick, right? And you all have EQs that are super high because you are Indian by DNA, right? We just emotionally connect. We can't help it. Woo-hoo, our movies are so sweet and crying and everything, but we love it. We're emotional people. But what about the CQ, the cultural quotient? Is there a little room for us to learn something there? And so I was thinking, this is my team of people sitting in the headquarters in Chennai in our offices in Global Adjustments, and they have, every one of them, been able to expand their own cultural quotient by doing two things. One, you start with yourself first. First, you must understand yourself. Where do I come from? What makes me tick? Who am I? What's my value system? So how many of us here spend time introspecting on who we are? Oh my God, Warwick is a brilliant example. All hands were up. That's important, right? Only then, if you understand where you are and where you come from, can you understand the other. So then the other is, you understand the American versus the German versus the Japanese. Completely different people. And you can then adapt if you know that you come with certain strengths and certain weaknesses. Or shall we call them challenges? So in the 20 years that I have worked with people, repetitively I have heard people say, you know, I'm so glad I have an Indian team now. Barclays Bank, one of the largest outsourced areas they're working in, is setting up our operations in India. Because they say our teams have more than three, but three definitely brilliant things that they do. And what are those three things? In the Indian Roots and Global Wings, well, I missed that part, but the idea behind everything that I was going to tell you is, let's try to come to a forum where we can stand on par with others in the world. That's the desired outcome of this talk. So if you go to the three things that Indians do really well, and we can really pat ourselves on our back on this, the first thing is, every CEO I've worked with has said, oh my God, my Indian teams are so flexible. I love working with Indians. You know, this may be the reason why we're such good computer engineers. So they come and shove a last minute change in the project on us, and we're like, okay, fine, I'll get it done. Flexibility, avoidance of uncertainty is not high in our culture. Other cultures have very high uncertainty avoidance. Any Germans here? Go tell a German you haven't planned anything and just say, do this at the last minute and change everything on him. Process, definition, timeline, ooh, I can't do that. But Indians, okay, whatever. We're flexible. Sometimes that flexibility hurts us, okay? We are so flexible, we bend the rules also. Gotta be careful of that one. Right? The big joke, everybody's heard this, is what side of the road do you drive on in India? Right side, left side in America. But in India, it's always, I drive on what's left of the road. It doesn't matter, left or right. So that flexibility is actually a big positive that we have. The second thing, and this is universally acknowledged, we are the most hospitable people there are. It just comes to us naturally. The Atiti Devo Bhava, which was written in the Vedas 5,000 years ago, is just part of every cell in our body. And so the hospitality of India and the warmth sometimes has to make up for the infrastructural hurdles that India is facing. And I say this many times, most respectfully, to many people who come to set up in India and are complaining about, oh, if I go to China, the factory is ready, the roads are laid out, I just have to come and plug and play. Here, I set up my factory in Nokia in Sri Perumbudur. Before that, not at all famous, except that Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated there. And then there's no road from the city to Sri Perumbudur. After Nokia has come, and after all the other telecom guys have come, then the road is being built. But you know what? There is a certain quick effect that India can take on when we know that something is happening for the benefit of the economy. Now the roads are worked beautifully, and you can drive to that telecom corridor very easily in Chennai. So the warmth of the people is what people appreciate about us. The third thing, we're not just intelligent, that's a given. Indians are intelligent or not? Duh. Sorry non-Indians, but that's given. But we're intellectually agile, you know? We're very trainable. You teach us something, you know, we get to it, we know how to work with it, and we believe, we don't copy. Right to copy is not copyright for us. We're careful, unlike some neighbors who have those challenges. So we're intellectually agile, honesty up to a certain point, give or take, and we're extremely, those three things, hospitable, agile in intellect, and flexible. Hey, but are there a couple of challenges we have, do you think? Or are we perfect? We're kind of perfect, but over the time, people have said to me three things. Hey, wish you Indians could do this better. Is there anything you can do to teach my team to do this better? So then we go off to Deloitte, we go to McKinsey, we go to Deutsche Bank or Ford or Facebook, and we do trainings of people who have passed out of Warwick, have entered, there's no skill gap, they've all gotten jobs there in these big MNCs, and then we go and train them on those 3 things that I'm going to share with you today. So actually I'm shooting myself in the foot, because if all of you learn these things, I won't have any programs to run in India anymore, but I don't mind. So the first thing, they say, what is this ability not being able to say no that Indians have? Do we have a small problem there? So saying no. How many people in this room have no problem saying no? Oh, I'd expect an expat hand to go up. I asked for Indians. Actually, very few, right? Very few of our hands are going up. And the point is that in our culture, we've been raised to think that saying no is disrespectful. So out of respect, we don't say no. But now, fast forward to the 21st century, we're representing a global company in a global playing field. And if we don't say no, then we suddenly look like liars. How many times I've heard this, you Indians are liars. And then it hurts us. Oh, we're sensitive. We don't like that, right? Well, why did you say yes then? Because you couldn't deliver it. Did you assess the load of work that was needed when your professor gave you the 10-page paper to submit? Did you go ahead of time and say, can I have a little more time to finish this? Did you just show up on the day off? A few people are nodding. Are there some projects to give on Monday? Did you go and say to your professor, sir, I really had this, but I have this brain wave, I'm going to write 2 more brilliant pages, so can I have an extra day or 2? So there is that inability to say no. And you know what? Our college system of education, our schools, and then our corporate life all carry this as a strain. So starting today, we have to be able to say no. Okay? Will you all say no?
No.
No. So let's see, what's the second one? The second one is India awareness. So people ask me, I ask a question about India, and these are over the years, hundreds of companies we've worked with, and I get some completely different answers from different Indians. So what is this thing about not having a common awareness of India? You know, it might be something as simple as why do you have a dot on the forehead? Because now I have a little business card, it says there Ranjini Manian, dot on the forehead, and I explain, and this is why I have a dot on the forehead. And so my business card says that. But why do we have a dot on the forehead? So really quickly, somebody? Yeah, this dot. So this is how we say no. So when we say no, I don't know, we ask a question back. You mean this? I got a chance to pick on you, sorry. Yes, yes.
Isn't it a sign of one of the solar singars of married women?
Ooh, so if I'm not married, I can't have it.
There's another explanation which has to be more spiritual, and apparently it activates this chakra that we have.
All this is good, but do you think the real Brit living in England cares about the chakras if he doesn't know what it is? It's good. Your answers are not wrong. The solar singar is also one aspect. The special the dot is also true. But there's a very simple explanation. Yes?
Is it some pineal gland?
What gland? Oh dear, I don't know if that's Yeah. So the third eye of knowledge. And you can answer.
Why I voted?
No, you don't have to answer that. You can play. Because you're Indian. And so, just because they don't wear the job doesn't mean they're not married. Yes?
It is a culture.
Last, huh?
It's in our culture to wear a bindi.
It's in our culture. Okay. So actually those answers are all a combination. But the simple answer today, and I think we can give others as well, is one I suggest is the third eye of knowledge. What eye of what knowledge? Well, these two eyes look outwards at the world, and they take in all the data. And then you need to have some quiet time to introspect and look within who you are, What is the spiritual life you're here to do, or just who am I as a person? So every time we see a dot on the forehead of another person, it reminds us, this ephemeral, whatever we see outside is ephemeral, and what is going to be eternal is the dot that reminds me to look within. So sometimes when you explain to people that it's the third eye of knowledge, and that's what my card says, it's the third eye of knowledge about myself. It helps to just know a little bit about your culture. That it is our culture, we're very proud. But we need to be able to know not what my mother did and my grandmother did I'm doing, but I do it because of belief. So from ritual, we've got to go to rationale. We have to understand the rationale of a few things, not everything. But I'm going to run a more business-like quick quiz for you on India awareness. And you probably already know all these answers because the wonderful presentation from Cambridge was an eye-opener for me. How many billionaires are in India? And this is all give or take a few, okay, because we invented the zero, so we use the million and all that freely. So don't pick on me, my numbers are not perfect, but they're more or less there. How many? Is it 32, 49, 56? Quickly. 49? That's only what we have in England. We have much more than that. 56. 56 billionaires. But, as Dr. Fernal pointed out, there are also several Indians that live below the poverty line or less than $1.25 a day. And what number is that, roughly? 500 million, right? And then you have, so how many of us speak English? Speak up. Did you say 525? 525? You said 350? You're right. You're right. It's 350 million. Good. So how many Brits live on the planet? How many Indians speak English and how many Brits live on the planet? There's a little bit of a discrepancy there. 54 million, I think. Even if you take Americans, how many Americans on the planet? How many Indians speak English? How many babies are born a minute in India? 51. So by the time you finish laughing, there'll be 51 more. So nobody can ignore us, right? And the other two numbers are interesting because 28 is the number of Chinese babies born a minute. So we're overtaking them. And 11 are the numbers of the 51 that are born just in Uttar Pradesh. And so these naturally going to be our national anthem. And then why does India have this odd half hour? Darn, what is this? We're always late, we need that half hour, right? Or is it because we're 1,000 miles apart and we should split the difference of the time difference? We should have been on 2 time zones, right? Not enough of the joke of not being on time. We're always going to be on time. But it's the India 1,000 miles apart. So what I want to share with you in this little quiz is this is the reason the world can't ignore India. We just have lots of wealthy people that will buy whatever luxury products that people create and that will invest into other countries for the stuff that they need investment on. We will always have lots of work to do to bring half our population over to the other side. We speak English, and we will have consumers and workforce always long after the world would have grown old, and we will work while the world sleeps, helping the time difference advantage taking the time difference to our advantage. And so those are the reasons that India always matters. And that's why I call it India Matters. So the third thing that we should try to please look at a little bit more, according to what all the businesses are telling me, is communication. And that's not a big deal. Here, everybody communicates beautifully, but like these, and yet we understand them. What's the problem? So if I'm a little Tamil and I speak with a lot of Tamil accent, so long. But the point is, we have to speak slowly. I want you to know this. The fastest language on the planet is Tamil. How many people here speak Tamil? There you go. We can't help it. Our mind just goes fast because the speed of speech is like that. Second fastest language on the planet, Hindi. How many people speak Hindi? So India, between its languages, we just speak fast. Slow down that speech is what we need for clarity of communication. Not so much changing the accent, right? And then the intent. So here's the very important thing. As you speak from this afternoon onwards, if you speak to another person of another country, culture, background, even a different background within India, can you make sure that what you heard is what was meant? Sometimes what was meant was not an insult, and we're taking it as, how could he say this to me? Me? I've done so much for him. And it could be in interpersonal relations, nothing to do with culture. And then the second is, make sure that what you said, and that's equally important, is what was understood. I said this hoping you would do something faster, but you have taken offense. Now here's the trick. How do you put this emotion into WhatsApp? Has that come? No. When you are emotional, do not use SMS, text, WhatsApp, any of those devices. Meet people, speak to them, say, this is what I meant. Have I made myself clear, or am I confusing you? And you know what, human to human, we can connect easily. And we can solve the whole world's problems. That's the do and the direct. That's the final one of proud. Go ahead and make sure that we make our communication very direct. Who's your favorite cricketer now that World Cup is coming? I'm hearing only Indian names, I presume. Thank you. No other names are allowed. Well, some of you use British names. Virat Kohli. So, did anyone say Dhoni here? Okay. So I'm also a big fan of Dhoni's, okay? But I took a video of Dhoni's and Andrew Strauss's. And I'm going to play a video to you for 1 minute each. The match was tied, and the commentator asked them, are you happy with the tie? And Dhoni answers it a particular way, Strauss answers it another way. Please see if the communication is direct. And don't blame Dhoni, I love him.
But Indra, first question, are you happy with the tie?
Well, the way they were going, I think they got off to a very good start. I think Andrew batted really well, and there was a time, I think, where it seemed as if they'll chase the score in 48 or 49 overs. So at the end of the day, happy with the tie, because I think it may reflect in that point table as a win.
So did he answer the question directly? No. So when I asked non-Indians, they either tell me, he didn't answer at all. I'm not sure where his answer was. Or they say, he is happy with the tie. I've tried this video on several people. And then watch what Andrew Strauss does.
And now if I could ask the England captain to come up, please, Andrew Strauss. Andrew, I'll ask you the same question. Are you happy with the tie?
Well, I mean, yes and no, I suppose. The answer, we're in a great position to win the game after 42 overs. Had a shocking power play, and then from that stage onwards, India were favourites to win the game. So, all credit to Graham Swan and Ajmal Shahzad for getting us a tie in the end there.
And that was Andrew Strauss. So did he answer the question directly?
No.
Yes and no, I suppose the answer is. But it's that yes and no, I suppose the answer is all those words were said when? Early in the conversation. Look at the difference, okay. Dhoni gave context and background. Blah, 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 blah. And then gave the answer. I suppose at the end of the day, we're happy with the tie. That's what he says there, by the way. And Strauss came right there. Well, yes and no, the answer is, and then gave all the supporting reasons. So it's a simple case, I think, and I've tried this a few times with teams that we work with. See, in the Western mind, if you give why things happened and then you give the main point, it looks like you Indians are always making excuses. Okay? That's what happens. Now, switch that a little. Make the main point first. Are you going to have this ready for me on Monday at 4 p.m.? I'm afraid not. The reason is, and then you give the reasons, it's seen as reasons. You're no more looked at as someone that is making excuses. So it's a simple case, I find, of just becoming direct That is important. And it doesn't come, it's the same thumb thing. Every time you feel like going to the indirect mode, force yourself to become blunt. Force yourself to say yes or no, and then give oriented to solution answers. And then you won't be in a jalebi syndrome, going round and round. We'll find this cinnamon roll with the point right in the middle. So India Century is here, and it's with great pride that I will present my book, Make It in India, to Dr. Bedi. And this afternoon, the India Warwick Forum has said that we could maybe do a small international book launch. I'll be happy to leave some books behind for you. The actual launch of the book is happening on Friday in India. And it's going to be a great privilege for me to share it with you because these are not my stories. I interviewed 12 CEOs in Make It in India. I was very inspired by the Modi-Obama meeting. I ran my company, remember, with an American and me, and here were two heads of state that were saying, if we do trade, the rest will flow. And I thought, man, that's exactly what I've been trying to articulate for 20 years. So I tried to speak to 12 CEOs from Facebook, from Ford, from IBM, from Microsoft, all who ran India's global operations in India, and ask the questions that Indians have of Americans and Americans have of Indians. And then the good news is, Kirtika Reddy gives the story in the book. She says, India's innovation is amazing now. So, you know, we all use Facebook for instant communication or something, but this Facebook story, she says, is how a farmer in Sangli used Facebook and rallied around 26,000 farmers because the turmeric price was falling badly and was affecting farmers. And so he rallied around and they managed the demand-supply problem beautifully just through Facebook. So imagine Facebook, which is #1 top consumer of Facebook is America. China? No, because they banned Facebook. But India, #2 market in the world for them. And Indians are innovating. So the good news is we are smarter than they think. And the next story, which is a great good news I love in the book also, is just the adaptation to India story. Ford set up its plant, had a big banyan tree right in the middle of Ford, and when they were going to build the plant, they were ready, coming with an axe to cut the banyan tree. Is that allowed? All the villagers came up in arms with sickles and hammers to come and hit out at Ford. So very quickly, they took the earth and they did a nice earth-breaking ceremony. They kept the banyan tree. They have a picture now of the first Henry Ford model of Ford under the banyan tree, and it remains in the Ford plant in Maramalai Nagar. So the world is ready to adapt to India. That's the other great news. And so I'm going to leave you with just this thought. Please speak up for yourself. Please speak up for India. This is the chairman of the board of BMW. When he first came, they were not sure where to set up their plant in India. They looked at 13 states out of our 28 at the time to look for where to be, and finally they chose Chennai. In 1 hour, 58 minutes, I finished his program of teaching them Indian business and brought them back, and I said, Dr. Reithofer, you had given me 2 hours to finish this. I finished in 1 hour, 58 minutes. We Indians know how to keep time. And so they gave us the contract, and I was able to work with the rest of Ford. This is the president of Ford India and when they set up in India. So speak up for yourself, speak up for India, and I wish you just the very best as you go forward. You're welcome to stay in touch with us on Facebook, which is your medium I know you like to use. I'll leave the books here for you, and thank you very much, and I'm always available